I never thought I'd end my career wiping tables at a diner called Sunny Fork, but life has a strange sense of humor. One day you're running a solid construction company with your name on the trucks, and the next your own son, Bradley, accidentally signs half your assets away to a group of business partners who smile like dentists and bite like sharks. He thought he was being clever. Turned out he was being, well, Bradley. I'm not proud to admit it, but that day I cried right into a basket of complimentary dinner rolls. Folks said they were saltier than usual. Yeah, that was me. Before I go on, subscribe, hit the like button, and tell me in the comments how old you are and where you're from. For you, it's just a small thing. But for me, it's the reason I keep telling these stories. Anyway, after losing everything, I took the job as a waiter. At my age, 68. My neighbor Carl said, "If you ever need help carrying those plates, call me. I'll pretend to have a bad back so we both get out of work." Nice guy. Useless help. Then one evening, around 6:30, a man in an expensive suit came, in the kind of suit that looks like it belongs on someone who never laughs unless he's charging interest. His name was Grant Whitmore. Old money, new attitude. He ordered black coffee and glanced at me like I had wandered in from the wrong movie. But his briefcase was half open, and inside I saw a stack of financial papers, numbers, debt columns, a desperate red underline. I've run a company for 40 years. I know trouble when I see it. He caught me looking. "Do you give advice too?" he sneered. "Or just spill soup?" I leaned closer, lowered my voice. "Sir, you keep going this way, and you'll be bankrupt in 6 months." He laughed so loudly the salt shakers rattled. "You, a bankrupt old waiter, advising me?" He didn't know that life had taken my money, not my brains. Next morning at 7 sharp dot, someone pounded on my front door. It was Grant, the man who laughed at me, and he looked like he hadn't slept at all. Grant stood on my porch at 7 in the morning, looking like a man who'd misplaced his entire future. His suit was wrinkled, his tie hung sideways, and his hair, which yesterday was slicked back like he bathed in motor oil, now stuck out in every direction. If panic had a haircut, it was this. "Can we talk?" he blurted. I rubbed my eyes. "Grant, it's Saturday. My brain doesn't start working until the coffee machine threatens to explode." He shoved a folder at me. "Just look. Please." So there I was, standing in my slippers that looked like two exhausted hamsters, flipping through documents worth more than my house. The numbers were worse than I thought. He was bleeding money from 3 sides, and on the 4th side someone was poking the wound with a stick. "My accountant said everything was fine," he muttered. "Your accountant?" I said. "Also signed off on a restaurant that charges $40 for mashed potatoes. So I'm not sure he's a reliable source." Grant sat down right on my porch step like a teenager who'd just been dumped. "I don't understand how this happened." I did. Oh, I did. Pride. Overconfidence. A little too much trust in shiny people with shiny teeth, the kind my own son had fallen for when he tanked my company. Watching Grant panic was like déjà vu, except this time I wasn't the one losing everything. I took a breath. "Grant, you're not beyond saving, but you need someone who'll tell you the truth, not someone who'll nod for a paycheck." He stared at me as if I'd sprouted wings. "You mean you?" "Well, I wasn't planning on playing financial fairy godmother today," I said, "but my calendar is surprisingly empty." A tiny spark of hope lit up in his eyes. "I'll pay you," he said quickly, "whatever your rate is." My rate? I thought. I didn't even have a rate. Yesterday, my biggest responsibility was refilling ketchup bottles. This morning, I was apparently being hired as a consultant by a millionaire who couldn't read his own balance sheets. I pretended to think very seriously. "Well, I suppose we could start with a cup of coffee." Grant nodded, like I'd just offered to cure his anxiety forever. He followed me inside, careful not to sit on the wobbly chair, the same chair Carl broke, and insisted, "Fixed itself." As Grant took a seat, he asked quietly, "What's the first step?" I looked him straight in the eye. "First step? You tell me everything, the real everything. Because people only end up in this much trouble when they hide something." And boy, he did. Because what Grant confessed next changed everything. Grant sat at my tiny kitchen table, clutching the mug like it was the last warm thing in his life. My kitchen isn't exactly Wall Street material. The clock ticks 5 minutes slow. The fridge hums like it's practicing for a barbershop quartet, and my neighbor Carl once insisted the toaster has an attitude problem. But it was honest, and maybe that's why Grant finally cracked. "It's my partner," he whispered. "Elliot." I raised an eyebrow. "Partner in business or partner in trouble?" He sighed. "Both, apparently." I knew the type before he even finished the sentence. Charming, energetic, teeth so white they could double as headlights. "The kind of man who slaps you on the back while stealing your watch." I'd met a few of those in my life, my son Bradley's friends included. Grant rubbed his forehead. I trusted him. He handled the investments. I didn't double check. He kept telling me we were expanding, taking risks to grow. Meanwhile, he was funneling money into side companies under his name. I whistled softly. "Classic. You won't notice until it burns strategy." He nodded, ashamed. "He said I should relax, that I was old-fashioned, that I didn't understand modern business." I nearly laughed. Modern? Fraud isn't modern, it's vintage. It's practically antique. Then Grant looked at me with that same devastated expression I once saw on myself in the diner bathroom mirror. Why do people do this to someone who trusts them? I wanted to say something wise, but instead I blurted, "Because some folks could stare into a mirror and still ask, 'Who's that idiot?'" Grant actually snorted. A genuine laugh. "That's painfully accurate." We went through the documents line by line. The deeper we dug, the clearer it became. Elliot wasn't just reckless. He was sinking the whole company and planning to blame the collapse on Grant, a tidy little escape hatch. "All right," I said, leaning back. "We have two problems. 1. You let him drive your ship blindfolded. 2. He tied dynamite to the steering wheel." Grant swallowed hard. "Can it be fixed?" "Yes," I said. "But not if you keep pretending everything's fine. First, you need to stop him before he drains the last of your assets. Second, you need proof." Grant straightened up. "What kind of proof?" "The kind," I said, "that makes lawyers open their laptops before their morning coffee." He stared at me with new respect, like I'd just transformed from a waiter into some corporate wizard. "Why are you helping me?" he asked quietly. I froze for a moment. Why was I? Maybe because I knew what it felt like to lose everything. Maybe because helping him felt like reclaiming a tiny piece of the man I used to be. Or maybe because I wanted one win. Just one. "Because," I finally said, "everyone deserves at least one person who tells them the truth before the world crushes them." He nodded, deeply, absorbing every word. Then the door suddenly swung open without knocking because, of course, Carl barged in holding a bag of bagels. "Gentlemen," he declared, "don't panic, but I bought the wrong kind and ate half on the way." Grant blinked at him. Carl blinked back. "Ah," Carl said. "A meeting. I'll just place these here and pretend I wasn't here." He tiptoed out noisily, somehow stepping on every squeaky floorboard known to mankind. Grant turned to me. "That was your neighbor?" "Unfortunately," I said. "He thinks he's subtle." But the moment of comedy faded as Grant's face grew serious again. "So what do we do first?" he asked. And I told him something that wiped the last bit of color from his face. "The first thing you're going to do," I said, "is walk straight into your office on Monday morning and fire Elliot." Grant froze like I'd slapped him with a cold salmon. "Fire him? Just like that?" "Yes," I said. Firm handshake, polite smile, security walking him out. The classics. "But he'll cause a scene," Grant muttered. "Of course he will. Men like him don't exit quietly, they leave scratching the furniture." Grant paced around my kitchen, stepping over Carl's forgotten bagels like they were landmines. "I don't know if I can do that. I've never fired anyone." I stared at him. "You're a CEO." "Yes, but Elliot always handled the uncomfortable things." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Grant, the uncomfortable thing is that Elliot handled everything." His shoulders slumped. "Listen," I said gently. "This isn't about saying a dramatic line and flipping your coat. This is about saving your company, your name, and your future. And you can't do that with a saboteur writing checks. Grant sat back down, hands trembling. What if he denies it? He asked. Then we show him the documents you'll collect this weekend. His eyes widened. This weekend? Yes, I said. You'll pull every record, every file, every transaction, and you'll make copies, not originals. That way he can't destroy anything if he catches on. He swallowed. Hard. You sound like you've done this before. I have, I said quietly, remembering the night I realized what Bradley had signed, how I stayed up until dawn gathering my own documents, a battle I still lost. Grant didn't say anything for a moment. Then softly, I'm sorry about your son. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because hearing someone else say it out loud felt like touching a bruise I pretend isn't there. Grant looked at me like a student waiting for a teacher to save him from an exam. Okay, he finally said. I'll do it. I'll gather everything. And Monday, I'll fire him. Good, I said. And I'll be there. You will? Oh, yes. I want to see the look on his face when he realizes the old waiter he mocked is the one who ruined his little magic trick. Grant actually smiled. Small, but real. Then, because the universe refuses to take me seriously, my doorbell rang. It was Carl again. He held a toolbox, wearing goggles, looking like a man about to cause permanent damage. I heard voices, he said. Thought maybe someone needs something fixed. We don't, I said immediately. Too late, Carl replied, pushing past us. I already emotionally committed. He marched to my bathroom, where absolutely nothing was broken, and began making aggressive drilling sounds for no reason. Grant whispered, Is he always like this? No, I sighed. Sometimes he's worse. But even Carl's chaos couldn't distract Grant from the weight of what lay ahead. He stood up, shoulders squared, the panic replaced by something sturdier. I'm ready, he said. I nodded. Good, because Monday is going to be a war. And at that moment, neither of us realized Elliot already suspected something and had plans of his own. Saturday and Sunday turned into the longest 2 days of Grant's life and into the most entertaining weekend I'd had in years. Not because of his stress, of course, but because watching a millionaire try to use a home printer was like watching a giraffe attempt ballet. First, he fed the papers upside down, then sideways. Then he somehow printed the same page 37 times and asked me if that was a sign. A sign of what? I asked. That the printer hates me, he whispered. But between chaos, coffee, and Carl bursting in every hour asking, Do you boys need sandwiches? Emotional support sandwiches? We actually made progress. Grant gathered every document, every transfer, every suspicious contract Elliot had slipped past him. By Sunday evening, Grant had a mountain of proof large enough to be considered a national park. But then something happened. Grant received a text. From Elliot, 4 words. We need to talk. Grant stared at the screen like it was counting down to detonation. He knows, Grant whispered. He knows we're on to him. Calm down, I said. For all we know, he just wants to borrow your stapler. Grant shook his head. No, Elliot only texts me when he wants something. And this feels wrong. Then his phone buzzed again. A voice message. Grant looked at me terrified. Should I play it? Yes, I said, unless you think it's going to bite. He tapped it. Elliot's voice oozed through the speaker. Grant, I've been reviewing our accounts. I noticed some activity. Copies being made, files being moved. I hope you're not planning anything embarrassing. We're partners after all. Grant turned pale. He's threatening me. No, I corrected. He's warning you. Threats come later. Just then, Carl stumbled into the kitchen, holding duct tape, a plunger, and what looked like my missing flashlight. I heard tension, he announced. I brought tools. Carl, I said, we are dealing with corporate fraud. So, he nodded thoughtfully. The plunger's unnecessary? He placed it on the counter anyway, just in case. Grant suddenly put his hands on his head. What if he destroys the rest of the files tomorrow? Or locks me out of the system? Or, Grant, I said firmly, you already have enough evidence. Tomorrow, you don't need him to confess. You just need him gone. He breathed slowly, trying to steady himself. What if he fights back? He will, I said. But you won't be alone. And you won't be unprepared. For a moment, he just looked at me, an old man in a faded sweater, making tea in a chipped mug like I was some kind of anchor in a storm he didn't even know he was sailing into. Thank you, he said quietly. I don't think I've said that yet. You will, I said with a half smile. At the end, when this is over. Grant nodded, grabbed his folder, and stood up straighter than before. I'll pick you up at 8? He asked. Make it 8:30, I said. At my age, if I wake up too early, my spine holds a protest. He laughed, actually laughed, and headed for the door. Just as he left, another message from Elliot popped up on his phone. This one wasn't calm. This one said, if you're planning something, stop. You won't win. Grant looked at me, fear creeping back. And I told him the truth, the one that made his heartbeat slow down just enough to think clearly. Tomorrow he'll realize you're not the man he can push around anymore. And that's what scares him. What we didn't know yet was just how far Elliot would go to stop us. Grant barely slept that night, I know, because he showed up at 8:15 instead of 8:30, pacing in front of my house like a man preparing to face a firing squad. His tie was crooked, his jacket buttoned wrong, and he kept wiping his palms on his pants like he was trying to dry a river. You ready? He asked. No, I said honestly. But we're going anyway. We got into his car, a shiny black sedan with more buttons than the control panel of a spaceship. Grant kept tapping the steering wheel anxiously. I kept trying to adjust the seat, but instead turned on the seat heater, the massage mode, and something that gently puffed lavender scent at me. This car is judging me, I muttered. Grant didn't even hear, he was too rattled. As we pulled into the company parking lot, his face went stiff. The building was modern glass and steel, but the atmosphere felt like a courtroom. Employees walked by, giving Grant awkward glances like they knew something was off but didn't dare ask. We rode the elevator up. Grant tried to take deep breaths. I tried not to comment on the elevator music, which sounded like a marching band melting. Finally, the doors opened, and there he stood. Elliot. Perfectly ironed suit, perfectly polished shoes, perfectly fake smile. The kind of smile that says, I know something you don't. Grant, he exclaimed, spreading his arms like they were best friends at a reunion. And, oh, the waiter. He looked at me like I was lint on his sleeve. I smiled politely. Morning. Still charging $40 for mashed potatoes? He blinked. What? Grant stepped between us. Elliot, we need to talk. In my office. Now. Elliot's jaw twitched, just barely, but he followed. We walked in. Grant closed the door. And suddenly the air felt heavy. Grant sat behind his desk, hands folded. Elliot lounged in the chair opposite, legs crossed, relaxed, too relaxed. So, Elliot said casually, I've noticed some unusual activity in our files. Unauthorized copies, searches, folders being accessed. He glanced at me. I assume this is your doing? Actually, I said, I was busy waitering. You know, spilling soup and giving unwanted advice. Grant swallowed, then spoke. Elliot, I've reviewed the accounts. All of them. And I know what you've been doing. A pause. Elliot didn't flinch. Not even a blink. Oh, Grant, he sighed. You've always been so dramatic. You misunderstand numbers all the time. It's why you have me. I leaned in. He has you because he trusted you. Big mistake on both counts. Elliot's eyes flicked toward me, irritated. Grant opened the folder, sliding page after page across the desk. Transfers, shell companies, false expenses, everything. This is fraud, Grant said quietly. And effective today, you're being let go. For the first time, Elliot's expression cracked. You're firing me? He repeated. You? Grant nodded. Elliot laughed a sharp, ugly sound. Do you have any idea who I am? What I can do? I built this company with you. You can't just... I can, Grant said firmly. And I am. Elliot leaned forward, eyes dark. Grant, if you think this old man can save you, you're more pathetic than I thought. I smiled. Well, at least I didn't lose millions while wearing a tie that looks like a confused snake. Grant's lips twitched, almost smiling. Elliot snapped. You'll regret this. I'll take the board. I'll take your clients. I'll take everything. No, I said softly. You already tried that, and today's the day it stops. Elliot stood up so fast the chair skidded back. He grabbed his phone, furious. You're making a mistake, he hissed. I'll ruin you. Grant's voice didn't shake. Not once. You already did. Now I'm fixing it. Security arrived, two tall guards with shoulders like refrigerators. They guided Elliot toward the door. But as he reached the hallway, Elliot turned back, pointing at Grant. This isn't over. Then the elevator closed. Grant collapsed into his chair. His hands shook so badly the papers rustled like wind. That was, he whispered, terrifying. I offered. Exhausting? Character building? He shook his head slowly. That was the first time in years I stood up for myself. Before I could say anything, his office phone rang. Once, twice, then again. Different lines, different numbers, clients, board members, employees, all wanting answers. Grant stared at the phone, overwhelmed. Pick up, I said quietly. This is where the real work begins. He lifted the receiver, and what he heard on that first call would shake both of us, because Elliot was already retaliating. Grant pressed the phone to his ear, and I watched the color drain from his face like someone slowly turning down the saturation on a TV. Wait, what? He whispered into the receiver. He told you that! I leaned closer, but he shook his head, listening. Yes, I understand. No, none of that is true. Yes, I'll explain everything soon. He hung up. Before I could speak, another line lit up. Then another. Then his email pinged so rapidly it sounded like a microwave having a nervous breakdown. Grant opened the first message, then the second, then the 10th. His jaw tightened. What's happening? I finally asked. He turned the screen toward me. Elliot had sent an email to every major client claiming Grant was mentally unstable, financially reckless, and had just fired him out of jealousy. He even attached a fake report showing that Grant caused the financial losses, not him. And of course, he said all future communication should go through him until Grant recovers. I exhaled. Well, he didn't waste time. Grant ran a hand through his hair. He's trying to take everything. Clients, contracts, even my reputation. Of course he is, I said calmly. A sinking man grabs whatever's closest, even if it's someone else's head. Before Grant could respond, his assistant, Megan, knocked on the door and burst in without waiting. She was young, sharp-eyed, and looked like she hadn't slept since tax season. Grant, she said breathless. What's going on? Elliot's been calling everyone. He even tried to access your office remotely. Grant blinked. What? He said he needed your login. I told him to take a hike. Good, I said. Never trust a man who calls himself essential. Megan stared at me. And you are? I'm the old man he ignored yesterday. Grant gestured. He's helping me fix this. She studied me like a librarian, deciding whether I was dangerous or just badly dressed. Then she nodded. We need a plan. I pointed to the mountain of documents. We already have one. Megan pulled out her tablet. Okay, first the board is panicking. Elliot told them you lost track of millions. Grant swallowed. Of course he did. Second, 2 clients froze their contracts until they understand what's happening. Third, he scheduled a meeting with the board this afternoon. Grant slumped back. He's faster than a raccoon breaking into a trash can. Hey, I said, don't compare him to raccoons. Raccoons have integrity. Megan snorted. Grant didn't. He was too close to breaking. So I leaned down to his level, forcing him to meet my eyes. Grant, listen to me. You did the hardest thing today, you fired him. Now you have to finish the job. But the board, you have the evidence. You have a loyal assistant. You've got clients calling, which means they still care what you say. And well, you've got me. A man whose biggest accomplishment this week was fixing a coffee machine with a spoon. Grant gave a weak laugh, the kind you give when your soul is clinging to a railing. Then Megan spoke softer. Grant, you're a better man than he ever was. You just stopped believing it. That hit him, really hit him. He inhaled deeply, stood straighter. And for the first time that day, he looked like a leader again. You're right, he said. Both of you. I'm not letting him destroy what I built. We're calling an emergency meeting, and I'll show them everything. Megan nodded, already typing furiously. But just then, her tablet flashed. She froze. Grant, she whispered slowly. You need to see this. We leaned over her shoulder. Elliot had just posted a public statement on the company's official page. And what he claimed in that announcement was the most explosive lie yet. Megan's hands trembled slightly as she held out the tablet. Grant and I leaned in, and the moment I read the first sentence of Elliot's public announcement, I felt my eyebrows trying to escape my forehead. Effective immediately, due to declining mental health and erratic behavior, Grant Whitmore has voluntarily stepped down. I, Elliot Brooks, will temporarily assume leadership to protect the company during this sensitive time, Grant whispered. He made me sound like I tried to fistfight a mailbox. Oh, no, I said. This is worse. He made you sound like you thanked the mailbox afterward. Elliot hadn't stopped there. Oh no, he had a whole paragraph of fiction. That Grant had been making irrational decisions for months. That employees should report any odd interactions. That clients should redirect all communication to him for stability. That professional help had been contacted. I choked on my own breath. Professional help? What's next you gonna say you're knitting sweaters for invisible cats? Grant looked like his soul had left his body, filed a complaint, then left again. Megan pressed her lips together. Grant, this is serious. Everyone sees this. Clients, partners, the media. Grant's shoulders curled inward. He destroyed me. In 5 paragraphs. And that's when something inside me snapped. Not anger, but recognition. Because I'd been that man once. The man watching everything slip away because of someone else's lies. The man who kept saying, maybe it won't get worse, right before it did. I grabbed Grant by the shoulders. Look at me, Grant. Look. He did. You are not him. You are not weak. You are not finished. He tried to breathe, but it came out shaky. But he told the whole world. And now, I said, you tell them the truth. Not tomorrow, not later, now. Megan straightened. He's right. We go public, with evidence. Grant hesitated. We can't just put this online, can we? Oh, Grant, I said. If Elliot can lie online, we can tell the truth online. That's the law of the internet, or at least it should be. Megan was already typing faster than a Vegas blackjack dealer. What do we title it? I said, how about a message from the real CEO? Grant blinked. That actually sounds good. We attached copies of every fraudulent transfer, screenshots of Elliot's shadow companies, the falsified expense reports, the doctored statements, all neatly packaged. Then came the video. Grant sat in front of the camera in his office, no fancy lights, no makeup, just a tired man with truth on his side. He spoke calmly, honestly, directly. I stood behind the camera, giving him signals every time he drifted into panic land. He finished with one line that even Megan whispered good one at. If protecting my company makes me unstable, then I hope everyone learns to be unstable. We posted it everywhere. Website, socials, company page, email blast. Then we waited. Not long. 15 minutes later, Megan's tablet started vibrating so violently that Carl's plunger, still on my counter from earlier, fell to the floor. Megan stared at the screen. Grant, you need to see this. He leaned over. Every major client had responded. Every board member, every investor, every employee group chat lit up. And they all said the same thing. We believe you. Grant's breath shuddered, relief flooding his face so suddenly he had to sit down. But the biggest message came last. From Elliot. 3 words. You'll regret this. Grant looked up at me, and for the first time today, he didn't look afraid. He looked angry. determined, alive. I nodded. He's cornered. Cornered men make dumb decisions. Oh no, Megan said, staring at her tablet again. Oh no, 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 Grant tensed. What now? She handed it to him. Elliot had just sent something to the board. Something so desperate, so reckless, so utterly unhinged, that even I had to sit down. Grant read the document Elliot sent to the board, and for a moment he didn't react at all, just stared, silent, expression frozen. Then he whispered, "He forged my signature." Megan leaned in. "He what?" I took the tablet and nearly whistled. Elliot had emailed the board a legal agreement, claiming Grant had signed over temporary control of the company to him due to stress-induced instability. The signature was a messy, panicked imitation of Grant's real one. "He didn't even get the G right," I muttered. "Looks like a chicken trying to write taxes." But this wasn't funny. Not really. Grant gripped the edge of his desk so hard I heard the wood complain. "He's trying to override my firing decision," Grant said. "He wants the board to reinstate him." Megan shook her head sharply. "That paper won't hold up. It's fake. Wildly fake." "Sure," I said. "But Elliot isn't playing to the court. He's playing to chaos. If he makes enough noise, someone will panic." Grant pressed his palms to his face. "What if the board believes him?" I put a hand on his shoulder. "Then we bury him under so much evidence that even a blind squirrel could tell he's lying." Before Grant could respond, the phone rang again, but this time it wasn't panic. It was a video call from the board. All 11 members. 11 rectangles of frowning, confused, impatient faces staring at us like judges in some corporate talent show. "Grant," the chairwoman, Linda Barrett, said. "We need immediate clarification. Elliot claims." Grant raised his hand. Calm. Controlled. Not the terrified man from an hour ago. "Linda, please allow Megan to share the files." Megan tapped her tablet. In seconds, their screens filled with fraudulent transfers, shell companies traced to Elliot's name, altered reports, and a time-stamped log proving Elliot accessed Grant's digital signature pad. They stared, silent, browsing, zooming, scrolling. I leaned in and whispered, "Remember to breathe." Grant whispered back, "You too." One by one, the board members lifted their heads. Linda spoke first. "Grant, why didn't you come to us earlier?" Grant hesitated, and then something broke open inside him. "Because I was ashamed," he said quietly. "I trusted the wrong person. I didn't want to admit it, and I thought I'd look weak." Linda's expression softened painfully slowly, like someone who hadn't softened in years. "You're not weak," she said. "Elliot is manipulative and dangerous." Another board member chimed in. "We're calling an emergency vote. Right now," I whispered. "Good sign." Grant whispered. "Is it?" "One," Linda called. "Remove Elliot Brooks from all positions and refer his actions to legal authorities." All hands raised. "Unanimous." Grant's breath caught, relief washing into him like sunlight cracking through storm clouds. But then Linda added, "Second, grant temporary investigative authority to the advisor assisting you. What was his name? The waiter?" I cleared my throat. "I prefer strategic dinner roll technician." A few board members actually laughed. "That's him," Grant said with a grin. "He's staying." And so, with 11 raised hands, I became an official consultant for a company worth more money than the diner makes in a year. Not bad for a man who once fixed jammed salt shakers for a living. The call ended. Grant stood still for a moment. Then he sat. Then he stood again. "I can't believe it," he breathed. "This is actually happening. I'm winning." "Yes," I said. "And Elliot is losing." Loudly. Just then, a frantic pounding shook the office door. Megan jumped. Grant froze. I looked toward the hallway, because whoever was knocking wasn't polite, wasn't patient, and wasn't calm. A familiar voice shouted, "Open the door, Grant. We're not finished." Elliot. He'd come back. In person. And he wasn't alone. Elliot burst into the office like a man who'd lost everything and was determined to take the furniture with him. 2 security guards were right behind him, but he shoved past them, eyes wild, hair no longer perfect, tie hanging like it had given up. "Grant!" he barked. "You think you can do this to me? After everything I built?" I stepped forward before Grant could answer. "You didn't build anything," I said calmly. "You borrowed, you lied, you siphoned, and you prayed no one smart would notice." Elliot pointed a trembling finger at me. "You! This is your fault. Some old diner rat." "I prefer former diner rat," I corrected. "Promoted recently." The guards finally grabbed his arms, but Elliot fought like a man wrestling ghosts. "Grant, I made you! You're nothing without me!" Grant stood up. He didn't yell. He didn't shake. He didn't even look angry. Just done. "No, Elliot," he said softly. "You didn't make me. You hid behind me. And now you're finished." Elliot's voice cracked. "This company needs me." "The company disagrees," Grant replied. "The board voted unanimously." Elliot froze. Really froze like someone had unplugged him from an outlet. "Unanimous?" he whispered. Grant nodded. "You're out. Permanently." Something in Elliot's face crumbled, not anger now, but the realization that every trick, every lie, every forged document had finally hit a wall he couldn't climb. The guards escorted him out. This time he didn't fight. Just before the elevator closed, he looked at me. "You ruined me." "No," I said. "You did that yourself. I just turned on the lights." The doors slid shut. Afterward, Grant sat at his desk, the same man, but somehow taller, straighter, like someone who finally remembered his own spine. He looked at me and smiled, tired, grateful, a little shocked. "You know," he said, "I thought losing everything meant I was done. But today, I feel like I finally started over." I shrugged. "Fresh starts come at strange times. Sometimes even at 8 in the morning after spilling soup on someone's lap." He laughed a real, full laugh that filled the office. Megan walked in with a stack of papers. "Grant, you've got 30 emails congratulating you, and a fruit basket from the finance team." "Fruit basket?" I asked. "Must be serious support. Nobody sends fruit unless someone almost died." Grant shook his head, smiling wider than I'd ever seen. Then he looked at me. Really looked. "I don't know how to thank you." "You just did," I said quietly. "Besides, you gave me something too." He raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "A reminder that I'm not useless just because my son made the worst decision of his life." Grant nodded slowly, understanding more than he said. "Do you want to stay on as a consultant? Officially? Paid?" I smiled. "Grant, I'm an old man with a rusty coffee machine and a neighbor who drills holes in perfectly healthy walls. I'll take the job." We shook hands. Not as waiter and customer, but as two men who'd both survived being betrayed by someone they trusted and somehow rose anyway. And the moral? Life will knock you down. Sometimes by mistake, sometimes on purpose, and sometimes because your own child signs papers without reading them. But dignity is something no one can steal unless you hand it over. Grant stopped handing his over, and I stopped believing that my best days were behind me. Turns out they weren't.